Repeated in our testimony here this evening, we do oppose the redefinition of marriage, and we are opposed to this bill.
Why would foster care be affected by a marriage bill?
We would not place children with same-sex couples through our health care, for example. We will not provide employee spousal benefits in terms of same-sex unions.
The majority of your funds are public funds. They come from either the federal government or the state and local governments that you serve. You know, I don't want to put on the record your salary, but it is a substantial salary. You understand why it would be offensive to district residents who pay taxes, who in fact support your salary. Last year, Mr. Orzechowski, there were 112 ward adoptions completed in the District of Columbia. Do you know how many Catholic Charities provided case management support for?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I am Ed Orzechowski, President and CEO of Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Washington, the largest provider of social services here in the Washington region. This past year, serving 124,000 men, women, and children who turn to us every day for shelter, food, adoption, foster care, counseling, employment services, medical and dental care, legal assistance, emergency assistance, and the list goes on. Of those 124,000 people, 68,000 plus were district residents. And we're on the front lines every day, serving and knowing firsthand the needs of many people. For example, Catholic Charities shelters more than 30% of the homeless population in the District of Columbia. And I'm here today because this legislation could seriously endanger our ability to continue to provide services to thousands of people in the District of Columbia without adequate religious liberty protection. As a Catholic organization, we cannot validate and support same-sex unions by extending employee spousal benefits or providing adoption and foster care services that would be in direct conflict to our teachings. Catholic Charities has been providing high-quality adoption and foster care services in this city for more than 80 years. This year alone, 100 children will find safe and loving homes through those programs. In the past 2 years, Catholic Charities has made a strong effort to work even more collaboratively with other Catholic organizations and entities to leverage other resources to serve poor people in our communities. For example, through our Parish Partners program, we have worked with Catholic churches in the area to donate more than 180,000 pounds of food to the Capital Area Food Bank. They work with parishes in serving their neighborhoods through programs like clothing, rent, and other assistance, goes on and on. And like Catholic Charities, these parishes do not stop to ask if a person is Catholic. They simply ask what they can do to help. Without robust protections for religion, this legislation forces us into a position of either violating the law or ending necessary services to the poor. What happens when Catholic Charities goes to renew its license for foster care as a child placing agency, or seeks to continue partnering with the city to provide much-needed services through contracts? What happens to the $10 million that Catholic Charities raises each year from private sources for the public good? And that includes $3 million in direct cash assistance from the Archdiocese of Washington. What happens to the opportunities that the church contributes for the public good, such as the $6 million value of land that the church gave to build St. Martin's apartments for moderate and low-income families? The bottom line is this bill as written would hurt the children, families, and men and women who count on Catholic Charities, our parishes, and other religious entities to give them the care, and the respect, and the dignity they deserve to renew their lives. I thank you for your time.
You are the Chief Executive Officer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Orzechowski, Catholic Charities, and let's stipulate that Catholic Charities does great work. The majority of your funds are public funds. They come from either the federal government or the state and local governments that you serve, correct?
That's correct. About 75% of our funds do.
And so right here what we have is the tension, and let me stipulate that I'm willing to give religions the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to show greater or attempt to show a greater sensitivity to your issues, frankly, than I feel sometimes that you show to the issue of civil equality. You understand why it would be offensive to district residents who pay taxes, who in fact support your salary, who are gay and lesbian, or the family of a gay or lesbian person who helps support your salary, might be slightly offended that you enter the stream of public commerce, you willingly compete for public money, having taken that public money, which is your choice, you then wish to discriminate against gays and lesbians. Do you understand intellectually why some might find that offensive? We can put aside whether it's right or wrong, but can you understand why that would be offensive to some people?
I can understand why not allowing religions to practice within the public square is also offensive to a lot of people.
But Mr. Orzechowski,
and that's where obviously there's a difference.
That's not the question that, in all fairness, I ask, because, you know, we have the odd situation of me being the most successful lobbyer of funds for Catholic Charities of any member on this dais. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, well, I'm not sure of that, but I do know you've been a good advocate and a good friend. Yes.
The Pharmaceutical Resource Center and many other things, there's not another member on this council that has ever line-itemed money to you. Isn't that not correct?
That's correct, to my knowledge.
And so to paint me as somehow objecting to Catholic Charities, I mean, the evidence is to the contrary. I understand the good work you do, and we've tried to navigate a respect for your work, and also because you've always assured me that you respect the entire community and you serve everyone equally, correct?
That's correct.
So here we straddle this, but Mr. Orzechowski, I've got to be honest with you, this is really tough for me. You know, I don't want to put on the record your salary, but it is a substantial salary according to the latest 990s. It is a substantial salary, okay? And a good portion of that comes from gay and lesbian taxpayers in this city and straight people who sympathize with us. And so it's very hard for us, for me, to reconcile, this. I also have to tell you, I become somewhat offended as I try to reconcile this, and I'm told that you're just going to take your ball and go home if you don't get your way with respect to adoptions. This is something that I've heard repeatedly. Last year, Mr. Orzechowski, there were 112 ward adoptions completed in the District of Columbia. Do you know how many Catholic Charities provided case management support for out of the 102?
Offhand, I do not know last year's figures.
Six of 102.
Mm-hmm. That does not include the private adoptions that we also
facilitate. Does not include private adoptions, but we're talking about the public adoptions for which you're threatening to withhold if you're not allowed to essentially discriminate in a way that is consistent with your beliefs. I am trying to reconcile and give the benefit of the doubt on behalf of religious freedom, and I'm open to the suggestions to make this a more palatable law. But you have to understand I'm doing that in the face of what I find to be very offensive conduct. I find it offensive that this is not your private solemnization of weddings or solemnizations of services. It's when you enter the public square and you ask for public money to provide services, and then when it comes to your employees, you don't want to provide equal benefits to equally married people, or you don't want to place children in the parts of the community that are also funding you. I just find it very hard to swallow. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm still going to continue the commitment that I've made to try to find a good compromise out of an abundance of respect for the work of Catholic Charities. But this is not something I think, this is just not an easy matter.
I'd just like to say, first of all, there's no offense here intended whatsoever. It is about being true to who we are. And part of what Catholic Charities and other religious entities have done for decades is partner with government in the delivery of essential services. And we do that with anybody who comes to us, regardless of condition, belief, or circumstance. But we draw a line where it conflicts directly with our core beliefs. That has been respected for years. And again, I need to emphasize, there is no disrespect or offense intended because of that. And I want to also say that I do appreciate your efforts to try to find a religious exemption language that will work for us.
Mr. Chairman, I will leave it with this. I would like to see the mission statement of Catholic Charities broadened, to be very honest, because the last line is what I struggle with. It says, we serve those in need without regard for race, religion, or national origin. But what is missing is sexual orientation. So what you're asking is to be able to discriminate based on your employment practices, but you receive public funds and assure me that you serve everyone equally. But that's not really reflected in your mission statement. That would be a goodwill gesture on your part in reciprocity to what I'm trying to do to respect your religious freedoms as it relates to your employment practices. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.